was equally relieved. Ryan had talked about his other life and had been so unhappy, and now we had something to go on. Although neither Cindy nor her husband believed in reincarnation, she went back to the library the next day and checked out a book about children who had memories of their past lives. At the end of it was a note from the author saying that he wanted to hear from parents of kids with similar stories. Cindy sat down and wrote him a letter. Okay, this story, it's tragic, but in a way probably comforting to the family. So let's see. In 1946 and 1951, daughters Joanna and Jacqueline were born to a happy Catholic family who lived in the market town of Hexham in England. Parents Florence and John Pollock ran a milk delivery business and already had 4 sons when 2 daughters arrived. While the parents were working, the girls were often left with their grandmother, where they'd happily play dress-up and games of imagination. However, tragedy struck on May 5th, 1957. On the way to church with their friend, a car veered off the road and smashed into them. The girls passed away on the scene, and the friend they had been with as well, Anthony, died en route to the hospital. Joanna was 11 and Jacqueline was only 6 years old. They had their entire lives ahead of them. A woman named Marjorie Wynne was responsible for their death. She had been found to be intoxicated after overdosing on aspirin and the epilepsy medication. I'm not even gonna try to pronounce it. Well, I am gonna try. Phenobarbital. Okay, I got that. I got that right. The woman's children had been taken away from her after attempting to take her own life. She was later committed to a psychiatric hospital. Despite their despairing grief, it wasn't long before Florence fell pregnant again. On October 4th, 1958, she gave birth to twin daughters, whom they named Jillian and Jennifer. Strangely enough, John had suspected that they would have twins despite the midwife hearing only 1 heartbeat throughout the pregnancy, and there had been no family history of twins. John feared that the death of his first 2 daughters was a punishment from God for his childhood fascination with reincarnation, leading him to question his Catholic faith. He believed that the twin girls were his dead daughters reincarnated. The case for reincarnation was made compelling by the appearance of similar birthmarks between one of the twins, Jillian, and one of the dead sisters, Joanna. Both had a darker patch of skin, the size and shape of a thumbprint on their hips. In addition, the other twin had a birthmark on her forehead that resembled a scar Jacqueline had received from a fall in 1954. Similarly, despite being identical twins, there were other physical differences that made them look less like each other and more similar to one of their dead sisters that they had never had a chance to meet. When Jillian's gait was splay-footed, again like Joanna, Jennifer's was ordinary like Jacqueline's. However, the case for reincarnation is not merely physical. Dorothy's lifetime belief that she was a reincarnated Egyptian princess who lived 3,300 years ago. The revived Dorothy no longer spoke with a British accent, but an Egyptian one. She began having vivid dreams of a temple with a lush garden. She constantly begged her parents to take her home. Instead, they took her to the British Museum, and when Dorothy saw the Egyptian statues, she ran over to them and kissed their feet. When Dorothy found a picture of the Egyptian temple of Seti I, she told her parents it was her home. Her obsession with Egypt led her to move there with her Egyptian husband and to name her son Seti. She soon recovered her memory of being Benshit, which means harp of joy. She was a priestess and a mistress of the pharaoh Seti I. She broke her vow of celibacy when she became his lover, but to make matters worse, when she became pregnant, she unalived herself to spare the pharaoh of public humiliation. Eventually, Dorothy's past life obsession destroyed her marriage that ended in divorce. However, she remained in Abydos working with the Egyptian Department of Antiquities. Her knowledge of ancient Egypt astounded archaeologists. Few people had the privilege of seeing inside the temple of Seti, but the department wanted to test Dorothy's claims. Archaeologists led her into a dark temple and asked her to describe it. She passed with flying colors, describing everything inside the temple, even though she couldn't see anything. Outside, she pointed to where the garden had been, and upon excavation, tree stumps were unearthed. Dorothy enjoyed a full life working with archaeologists at the ancient temple of Seti site. She was given the nickname Seti, which means Mother of Seti, in honor of her son. Her contribution to understanding ancient Egypt was highly valued. I feel that these stories obviously seem unbelievable, but I always ask myself the question, these are things that people would never know. You know, these are